Well, hello there and welcome to another Kerbal Space Program video. In this one we're not going to be building as much as in the last one. We're gonna be building some though. We're gonna be building the lander that we are gonna land on Moon and Minmus in. And we are also going to build a second stage beneath this, which will be a fuel and engine stage that we're gonna use to send all of this to Moon. Just now putting on some of the solar panels there on the top so we can get some electricity to our battery there on the bottom. I didn't really know which engines I should use at this point, but I ended up using these small engines because I think they look so cool. I also decided to have one of the fuel tanks on the vessel instead and make a sort of a asparagus staging into those fuel tanks that are on the side there. They didn't really line up, but well, I think it's fine. And this can house 5 Kerbals. I brought 4 because, well, it's always nice to have some space over if you need to pick someone up, which we might have to do. Who knows? Who knows? I don't. Putting on some RCS thrusters here again, just because we are going to dock this to things, and it's nice to have those RCS thrusters, even though I think you have probably seen countless videos where they tell you you can dock without it, and it's true. You can dock without it. But I think I feel that it's easier to do a docking when you have that extra element of moving around, so you can move in all directions that you want. And for this second stage of this rocket, the fuel stage, I didn't really know what to do because I usually don't use these engines. Because the nuclear engine is, as you probably know by this point, a very efficient engine, but it has very little thrust. And I like engines with a lot of thrust. I usually use the skipper engine or something like that for a vessel of this size. And now I'm also putting on some solar panels from the Near Future Solar mod, which I think is a great mod because it has a lot of solar panels. And I think it's really fun to have different types, a big amount of different types of solar panels. Also, I put on some extra wings that you saw there because I didn't have enough movement. I didn't have enough lift last time when I landed. That's why the engines blew up. But also I could have burned them a little bit because I did have fuel left when I landed. But that's a lesson for another time, and I think I'm gonna learn a lesson with this one too. But now we're just putting on some parachutes on this because we are gonna try to recover this as well. I'm really trying to recover every bit of this, even though I didn't put on any parachutes on the lander can. So, well, I guess I'll have to fly something up and dock it to it so I can bring it back safely to Kerbin once again. And here we are now at the launch pad, launching just like we did the last time, but this time it actually had a little bit more thrust to weight ratio, I think, because we didn't have as much mass, even though we have the very heavy engines and the giant fuel tank with all that liquid fuel in it. Even though we had that, it was still pretty light, I would say, for a vessel that looks so heavy. And trying to get just a good intercept here, or a good rendezvous with our second vessel, but I didn't know if I was gonna just brute force it or if I should make it a little bit nicer. So I thought I would just put this thing in orbit and then use the nuclear engines for the final touch of making it close enough, making the intercept close enough so I could actually go there. And there we go, 0.7 kilometers, so 700 meters off. That's good, I think. You don't always have to go that close, but I think it's nice to go as close as possible from as far distance as possible. And as you saw there, I actually forgot to enable or disable fuel from going through the docking ports. So I drained the fuel in the top stage as well when I used the nuclear engines. And the method that I use for docking is a little bit different than others that just cancel out the velocity and then point at target. I just point retrograde and then I try to make my retrograde marker line up, as you can see, with the retrograde point of the targets. So I point retrograde and then as you can see, the retrograde target point is where my retrograde marker was, which means my prograde marker is where the target is. And now I realized I didn't have any crew in the crew pod. And we also have some Kraken, or we have the Kraken joining us. Something happened there. I don't know how, but one of the arms had extended and the rover was, yeah, like you saw, a little bit outside, weirdly enough. But this docking went, you have seen dockings before by this point, I think. So it's not that interesting to see. But here we're coming in. And successfully docked. Now all we have to do is send this off to the moon. And I thought first that I would just eyeball it, and then I realized I have a very bad engine. Or not bad engine, I have a very efficient engine, but a very low thrust engine. So I would need to do this in 2 passes. I could have made this even better, because now you can put more maneuver nodes in at once. Like I could put one here, and then I could put another one on the next orbit, so I would know that it was good and aligned with the moon. And I should have actually throttled a little bit later in this orbit. And then I accidentally made a maneuver node on the orbit I was on and not on the next orbit, because I hadn't gone far enough yet. But it was good that I saw that now and didn't swing around and had to do one in a hurry, because it's nice to take your time with the maneuver nodes and get it just right. And there we are, flying off. But now we are gonna build a second rocket for this video. I didn't have any, or I had just the one launch at the end of the last episode. So I thought this time we're gonna make 2 launches. A little bit longer video, but more launches. I think that sounds good. So we're gonna fly over some fuel to this other stage that we now have heading towards the moon. And we don't really need this much fuel, and I will be putting even more fuel on it, which we really don't need. But I think it's fun to just build these huge rockets that are so overpowered, and then just use them for normal things, not going to like Joule, but going to like the moon and then going back and then being able to land just because you accidentally had all that fuel. That's something I think is fun. I don't know about you, but I think so. Here we have some antennas on this. The second stage here was actually just going to be a stage that was gonna take us to Moon, and then I was gonna deorbit it. But then I thought, why not keep it and keep the engine? We might have use for it, I don't know. And so I actually put on some extra fuel on this, even though we have enough fuel probably to get this whole thing to the moon and not land it, but at least stop it there. Even though we have that, I thought, let's put on some extra. And the fuel tanks that I put on here on the side, I just put 2 on. But I did put a small solid rocket booster on the top of them. So I could later, when I'm in orbit of the moon, detach them, and they would hopefully lose enough speed that they would crash into the moon. And well, we'll see if that works later. I had never tried this before. I had seen it in a lot of other videos, but people mostly just use the move tool to move them inside of the fuel tank, and I don't think that looks very good. Or, well, maybe it looks good, but I think it's funnier if you don't clip that many parts. You can have them edited, you can move them around, but as long as they don't clip into something that they shouldn't clip into, or physically couldn't clip into, then I think it's fine. And here we are launching this beautiful vessel with this enormous SSTO rocket, or almost SSTO rocket. As I said in the last video, I do have those solid rocket boosters on the side. And now, this time, since I had a skipper engine, I thought I'd just eyeball it going to the moon. And as you can see here, you just time warp until you can see the moon coming over the horizon, and that's when you burn. That's basically how you get to moon. Moon 101. And here we get a pretty good intercept. We actually overshot a little bit. So now we're gonna slow that down so we get 30 kilometers. That's good. And also using the alarm clock modification, which enables you to set up an alarm clock for when different things happen or at different times. And you can change all of this in the mod, but I only use it for, well, basic use like this when you're gonna intercept a planet or things like that. And this time when I was gonna land this enormous SSTO rocket, I was trying to land it here in the desert's runway or launch sites. It's both, yeah, it has both, yeah. It's the other one that only has a launch site, I think. But anyhow, I ended up spending a little bit too much fuel on this burn to get here. And then during the re-entry, I realized when I had all this lift, that actually helped me to slow down so I didn't blow up. I did go further than I thought. And I tried to slow myself down with air brakes and twisting it around in all different ways, the rocket, but it didn't work. And I didn't have any fuel left, which I realized, well, pretty much now, when everything blew up. We lost a couple of parts, but I think that's still a success. Well, thank you so much for watching this video, and in the next one we will be landing at the moon. And thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.